Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to our latest episode of Musical Musings, airing every Wednesday at 1 p.m. This program is broadcast from Rajamachan University of Technology, Peranakan. It comes to you in two parts. Our first part will introduce the song to you, and we're going to talk about its main themes, basically what the song's about, and we'll talk about maybe the band a little bit, and we will do that today. And then in the second part, after we listen to the song, we will analyze the lyrics. We will especially take a look at any vocabulary, slang, idioms, things like that that might be a little hard to understand. Then we'll have the news, and we'll get the latest updates from the university as usual.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, everyone. This is Gary Gray. I am your host for Musical Musings. I'm an American English teacher at Rajamachan University of Technology, Peranakan. All right, so for today's episode, we are going to be doing the song Don't Fear the Reaper by the Blue Oyster Cult. Boy, both the song name and the band name sound a little bit crazy, don't they? All right, well, let's first start talking about the band a little bit. This band formed way back in 1967. So that's like 56 years ago. And pretty amazingly, they're actually still around. Yes, the Blue Oyster Cult. That's the name of the band. The song is Don't Fear the Reaper. The name of the band is the Blue Oyster Cult. And yes, they've been around for 56 years. They're still performing. They come from America. They actually come from New York, which is where I moved here from. I'm not originally born in New York, but I was living in New York before I moved here to Thailand. So they are from New York as well. And right now, 56 years later, not only are they still around, but two of their top band members from the original band way back in 1967 are also still around. A lot of bands that formed that long ago, you know, they've changed their members so much that a lot of bands like that have like none of the same members now. None of them. Which makes you kind of wonder, is it really still the same band? I mean, is that really the same band if they have none of the same members? So, a lot of these bands that have been around that long, because there are others. One of my favorite bands, which is called Styx, and we will do them at some point as well. We will do that band, Styx, Styx. That band has also been around almost as long as this. And they, I think they only have one of their original members. Could be two. They may have two still. And one of them is one of their lead singers, although everyone kind of sings in that band, but one of them is one of their lead singers. So it's kind of similar there as well, but I think they were formed just a couple years later, and it's not like they're two top people that are still there with the band. With this band, it is actually their two top people still with the band after 56 years for the Blue Oyster Cult. So it's really amazing that they still have a couple of their original band members, because I believe there's only 5 total members in the band. It could be 6. I could be wrong about that. And if you were to go look up on Wikipedia, go look at their list of their former band members, there's really only about 4 of them. There aren't that many former band members. Not that many people have left. So even when they have switched out band members, a lot of them have stuck around a long time. There are actually a bunch more band members who were there briefly or just guest performances with them or things like that. But as far as their real long-term band members, there's only about 4 or 5 who have left the band over all those 56 years. So that's pretty amazing. Now, when they formed in 1967, their name actually wasn't Blue Oyster Cult. They were called Soft White Underbelly. That is also a weird name, isn't it? What in the world does that name? They actually took that name from a statement that Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of Great Britain prior to that, like during World War II, they took that from a statement Winston Churchill made about Italy. I don't know why they thought that was an interesting comment, taking something that's about Italy. I'm not sure why. The person that came up with the name is not Italian, although they did work with some British bands, so I suppose that could be why. Maybe he had an affinity for Winston Churchill, but I don't know why he found that name so interesting. And just in case you don't understand what the name of that band means when you say Soft White Underbelly, what does that mean? Well, for Churchill, he just said Soft Underbelly. Not sure why they added in the white. Actually, I have some idea, because the gentleman that came up with the name also worked with another band called Black Sabbath, and they were from the UK. He wanted Blue Oyster Cult to be like the Black Sabbath of America. So in black and white, so he probably just flipped it like that. That's why he said Soft White Underbelly. But Winston Churchill just said Soft Underbelly. What does that mean? And why was he talking about Italy? Okay, this was during World War II, so long before the band formed. This was an old quote that they used from Winston Churchill. So when you talk about the soft underbelly, think of like a turtle. Has the hard shell, really well protected. But if you flip it over, its belly side is really soft. That is the part that's vulnerable. If you wanted to do something mean to the turtle, you could hurt them that way. That is the vulnerable part. So, of course, Great Britain, where Winston Churchill was from, was fighting alongside America and some other countries to defeat Germany. Germany didn't have a whole lot of allies during that war. Japan was on their side, but Italy was one of them that was on their side. And Winston Churchill just thought Italy was fairly weak. So they were the weak spot for the people they were fighting against. So that's why he called them the soft underbelly. That's where Blue Oyster Cult's original name came from, Soft White Underbelly. But then they decided to change it. They went through a few names that they used very briefly, just temporarily. And then in 1971, they settled on Blue Oyster Cult. Some people just call them BOC. That's also a weird name. Where does that come from? Again, this was kind of the artistic director's idea, and he wrote some poetry. And in one of his poems, he talked about a group of aliens who were leading and guiding and directing human history. It was just one of the, just a story he made up. And that group of aliens was called the Blue Oyster Cult. So that's all. He just grabbed that name from his poem. That's all. Simple as that. All right, so this band was very popular through the 1970s. They really lost a lot of their popularity in the 1980s, but they did stick around. Like I said, they've been around. They're still around now. They've been around all the way through the 90s, 2000s. They're still here. So they've been around for a long time. Okay, so the song we're going to discuss from them today is called Don't Fear the Reaper. It came out in 1975, so it was really near the peak of their fame. It's probably their most famous song. They do have a few other really good songs. I recommend you look them up on YouTube. But this is probably their most famous one. It was written by their lead singer, whose name is Buck Dama. So he wrote it. And I need to really explain what a reaper is for you to understand the song. So the reaper is a reference to the Grim Reaper. Most of you, even if you don't recognize that term, have probably seen images of the Grim Reaper and know what he is or who he is. He's like a mythical figure. He's not real. And he comes to people to take them when they die. So the picture you have probably seen of the Grim Reaper is he's fairly tall. He's basically just a skeleton. He's dressed in a black robe with a black hood, and he carries what's called like a sickle or a scythe. I'm not even sure which one you'd call it, but it's that curved knife on a stick. So he's carrying that around. So if you have seen that image before, that's the Grim Reaper, who's referred to here as just the Reaper. So when it's saying don't fear the Reaper, it means don't be afraid of death. Now, what's interesting about this song is it is totally misunderstood. When you hear the lyrics, you'll kind of understand why it's misunderstood. There's a good reason. The lyrics do kind of sound like the public was interpreting it correctly, but it's not what Buck Dama intended. Buck Dama, who wrote the song, wanted this song to be a celebration of life and living. So just live your life to its fullest. Because people that are afraid of death, a lot of times they won't take risks. There's a lot of stuff they won't do. They live a very quiet, isolated life because they're afraid of everything. So the idea here is to enjoy life. Now, the way a lot of people understood the song was that it was actually celebrating suicide, which is just a terrible, like completely opposite meaning. And again, when you hear the words, you'll probably understand why some people interpret it that way. But that's not really what he was saying. Now, in the words to the song, there's a lot of references to death and people dying. But his point behind them dying is that they died, at least in some of the cases. Sometimes it's a little hard to understand exactly what he means, but at least in some of the cases, they died doing what they wanted to do, doing what they loved. So they weren't afraid to live their lives. So they were living life to the fullest. And that was the story Buck Dama wanted to tell with the song, was to not be afraid of life and go out there, live your life, have fun, do what you want to do, love life, have an exciting life, and don't be afraid of death. Don't be afraid of, like, if something bad could happen. Just go out and live your life the best way you can. So that's what he was trying to say. But a lot of people, like I said, thought it was celebrating suicide. And again, when you get to the lyrics, you'll understand why. All right, one last thing about this song, though. We're going to change topics here a little bit and stop talking about what it means. But there's a really fun pop culture reference to this song. There's a television program in America called Saturday Night Live. It's a comedy show, which is on Saturday nights, of course. And way back, long time ago, when the song was popular, sometime in the 1970s, I'm not even sure when they did it, obviously after 1975, that's when the song came out. But I think it was probably not too long after that. Could have been as late as like 1980, 80-ish, something like that, given who was in it. It could be that late. Again, I'm not really sure of the timing of it, because the song did stay popular for many years, so the song was still popular then. So they kind of did a skit. They did a funny kind of play on the song, and it's really funny. It's one of the most popular skits. That's like a short little play, and that's what that show is famous for, doing like short little funny pieces. They did a skit with this song, and it's one of the most famous skits on that television program. And it was all about the musical director wanting the cowbell to be louder. Cowbell is an instrument, and it is rarely used in music. And you will hear it in the song. You will hear it in the song. You will probably recognize it if you know what a cowbell is. You will recognize the sound. So it's rarely used in music, and you can hear it in this song. And so they kind of make fun of that in the Saturday Night Live skit, and it's really funny. Okay, so let's get to the song now. And for those of you who are on YouTube joining us, we're going to put a link for you in the upper right corner. We cannot include the video here because of copyright issues. But for anyone else listening to us through streaming or whatever on the radio, you should be able to listen to the song just fine. So here it is. Let's get to this great song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. All right, we went on pretty long with our first part of our program, so let's get right to this while we take a look at the lyrics for this song. So again, this song is all about celebrating life, but as I told you in the first part of our program, it kind of doesn't sound like that. Okay, so with this song, we start out with, all our times have come, here but now they're gone. Okay, all our times have come, here but now they're gone. That kind of makes sense. Again, it sounds like death, right? Because they're saying your time has come and gone. So your time being gone means your time is up. You're going to die. Your life is over. Like I said, there's a lot of death in this song. It really does sound like it's a bad song. It's not meant that way, but it sounds like it. Okay, so then it continues on. Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the rain. Okay. We can be like they are. Come on, baby, don't fear the reaper. Baby, take my hand. Don't fear the reaper. We'll be able to fly. Don't fear the reaper. Okay. All right. So, seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the rain. In other words, the seasons just go by. And they start all over again. Winter, spring, summer, fall, winter again. I know we don't really have all 4 seasons here in Thailand, but in most of the world where it gets hotter and colder. So, it's cold in winter, it's hot in summer, it'll come all back around again. So, the seasons have nothing to do with death. They don't fear the reaper. There might even be death within the seasons, like when the leaves fall off the trees. The leaves will then grow back the next spring. So, the seasons don't fear the reaper being death. Okay, so what they're saying then is we can be like they are. So it's saying don't fear the reaper. Now it also says we'll be able to fly. You're thinking about like what happens after death. So a lot of people, especially in Western culture, have this image of like being an angel or something like that. So this again is why some people thought it's like celebrating suicide. It's making what happens to you after death sound wonderful. You'll be able to fly. It's wonderful. It's not really what he's saying. I mean, he's saying it will be good. You will be in a good place. But that's why you should just live your life. Don't be afraid of what comes later. That's why he's saying that what comes after death is good. He's not saying that because you should try to get there. No. And that's the way a lot of people have interpreted it. Okay, now we get to the next verse. Valentine is done, here but now they're gone. Romeo and Juliet are together in eternity. All right. So Valentine, you're probably familiar with Valentine's Day. Okay, that's where 2 people who love each other, they kind of celebrate their love on that day. So here but now they're gone. So again, we had that here but now they're gone in the first verse. Here we have it again. So the Valentine is gone. That's because, of course, Romeo and Juliet, if you're familiar with that story, they are in love with each other and they die together. So they're together in eternity. So again, it sounds like we're talking about suicide, because Romeo and Juliet committed suicide. So it sounds like we're celebrating it again. No. What he's saying is you shouldn't be afraid of what's going to come. Like Romeo and Juliet, the reason they did that was because their families were trying to force them apart, did not want them together. They resisted and they stayed together until they died. Now, of course, they did commit suicide, which again, it's why a lot of people think that's what the song's about. But they stayed together against what everyone else wanted them to do. So this is saying to, again, do what your heart tells you to do. This is actually supposed to be a positive song. Romeo and Juliet refused to listen to their families. They loved each other. They got together. Okay, the song continues. 40,000 men and women every day. 40,000 men and women every day. Another 40,000 coming every day. Okay. So, what does that mean? All right, so that's talking about the number of people who are dying. 40,000 men and women die every day. So that's how many more are coming into, like, eternity. That's how many people are dying every day. So what, again, the song is trying to say is that, it just happens. It's part of life. Everyone's going to die someday. Now, actually, I don't know exactly where this number comes from. Obviously, in the whole world with billions of people, more than that number of people die every day in the world. It may be a number for just the U.S., for example. For example, there are like 300-something million people in the U.S. Probably, I don't know, maybe 1% die every year because that's how long people live. And so then you have to take that down and figure out the math there. I'm not sure exactly what you're going to end up with there. But it seems to me as though it would be about, I think, pretty close to 40,000. Might be a little higher than that. But of course, when the song was written, the population was a little bit lower as well. So I believe that's the number of people that are dying just in the United States every day. Okay. So then we have the chorus a little bit again there. Come on, baby, baby, take my hand. Don't fear the reaper. All of that part. We'll be able to fly. Okay, now we get to the final verse. Love of two is one, here but now they're gone. Came the last night of sadness, and it was clear she couldn't go on. Then the door was open and the wind appeared. The candles blew and then disappeared. The curtains flew and then he appeared. Okay, so what they're talking about here, again, is the love is gone. So she's sad, and it's the last night of sadness. It was clear she couldn't go on. So she can't go on anymore. She's sad. So once again, this sounds like suicide. So you understand why people thought that's what this meant. Because when it says the candles blew and then disappeared, the curtains flew and then he appeared, he appearing is the Reaper. Because then it continues on with him, whoever appeared, which again, it's the Reaper. It says, saying, don't be afraid, come on, baby. And she had no fear, and she ran to him, which again sounds like she's embracing death. Then they started to fly. They looked backward and said goodbye. She had become like they are. She had taken his hand. She had become like they are. Come on, baby, don't fear the Reaper. So again, she had started to fly. She'd become like they are. So don't fear the Reaper. So again, you understand why people interpret this as being about suicide, because it sounds like she just committed suicide. But again, all he's saying is don't fear death. Live your life. Now, in this last verse, it doesn't sound like she's really embracing life because she's sad. She couldn't go on. So that verse is a little bit weird. right? That verse is a little bit weird, given what Buck Dama said the song is supposed to be about. But you can kind of see it in the other two verses. You can kind of see where he's coming from, what he's getting at. Even though the song gets misunderstood by a lot of people, you can see where he's coming from. So you can kind of understand the song better. So this is actually supposed to be a really positive song. And in fact, the song is kind of upbeat. When you listen to the song, you could probably hear that. It's kind of a fun-sounding song. It's why it was so popular. It's a really good song, and it's kind of got an interesting sound to it, too. That guitar riff right at the beginning, that's really cool. We got that cowbell in there. That's really cool. So it's a really fun song. It's supposed to be. It's a positive song. All right, so that's the end of the song right there. So the music in it, like I said, you might have found a little bit unique. You got that guitar riff. You got kind of a fun sound to it. You get that cowbell. And it really is. It truly is a fun song. Blue Oyster Cult really does have an interesting sound to their music. It's rock. It's not like that weird or anything. It's just a little bit unique. You can kind of tell a Blue Oyster Cult song when you hear one. So you should check out some of their other songs. You can just search them on YouTube. Their most popular songs will probably just show up right at the top of your search. So go check them out. They're worth listening to. Okay, welcome back, and thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. Stay with us, and tune back in next week for another great song. And please do not forget to subscribe to our channel.
Musical musings, musical musings, musings.